Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Public high school that both my sisters went to. And because I had big goals and big dreams, I needed an educational foundation behind me to do that. There was a program at a specific school that I wanted to go to. Unfortunately, it was at Yale. It was at Yale. And I grew up in a place where people don't go to Harvard or Yale. So I did manage to get into Yale, leave the desert, go back there. But I just want to tell you, Mark, the problem was I got there and I got kicked out of class the first day because I didn't have enough money. I couldn't pay the full tuition. Um, so my first big dream in my life was suddenly shattered.
So, what really drove you to become an entrepreneur?
So I never started out to do that. I never wanted to do that. And that's why I told you the Yale story. The, I had big dreams and big goals. And when I got to college, and they said, you need to go home. You can't go here because you don't have enough money. So I called my parents. And I said, hey, they're kicking me out. And my parents said, well, then just go home. I called my friends and said, hey, they're kicking me out. My friends said, then just go home. And I remember thinking, I'm 18 years old. This is my first big obstacle in my life. Everybody's telling me to quit. What kind of precedent are you setting in your life if you quit as soon as life gets hard? So I said this. I said, look, I know everyone thinks it's impossible, and I know everyone thinks I should go home, but I'm not leaving here until I cross that stage and get that diploma. So my first startup was second day of freshman year. I started a little tech company with only one goal in the world, not focused on money, but focused on walking across that stage and getting that diploma. So here's what I learned from it. I actually did succeed. I funded my own education and I got the diploma. So when I left, I didn't go out in the world thinking, I want to be an entrepreneur. When I left, I started thinking that I developed a tool set that enabled me to achieve a goal. It turns out the goal was the diploma, but the tool set was building a company that actually achieved that goal for me. So I didn't even know the word entrepreneur, but what I knew was the skills of entrepreneurship are pretty good skills to make your dreams and goals come true.
Very good. So let's move ahead a little bit and talk about. Tell us a little bit about the story of Priceline and how you got started with that.
All right. Well, actually, there's one before that. Hang on one second. I actually ate something because I literally did not eat since last night. I'm doing events the whole day, and I will pass out if I don't eat something. I thought I'd be home and have eaten before the highway closed. So big apology. All right.
No
So
worries.
Priceline was the fifth startup for me, but I just want to share that I way before that, when I finished college, I got an engineering degree, and everybody told me, go get a good job at a good company and a good paycheck. So I went and got an engineering job. Now, I'm telling you, there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's just not right or wrong. I'm not telling people not to get an engineering job. What I'm telling you is I got a good job at a good company with a good paycheck, and I had everything but a good life. I did not like the job. I did not like my boss, and I was miserable every day. And I had dreams. I wanted to go see the world, and I never actually left my cubicle that I was in. The reason I'm telling you that is if my goal was to go see the world and my job didn't let me, then it should not be surprising to you that Priceline's a travel company, right? What entrepreneurs get to do is combine their interests with their job. What do you want to do? What are you interested in? Go do that. So my first company was not Priceline. The first company, I just want to tell you guys this story because it's important to what makes good entrepreneurs. Um, I quit my job, unemployed. Everybody's yelling at me. Everybody's mad at me. My parents are saying, "You're an idiot. You got a good job and you quit." No paycheck, no benefits, no food in the fridge. Um, I don't can't even afford top ramen noodles at this point. Entrepreneur food. Um, and I was going on a business trip trying to dream up an idea. And I bought an airline ticket and I went to the airport and I was waiting in line to check in. Now, when you're broke and unemployed, an airline ticket is a pretty expensive investment. And missing a flight is really bad because then you have to buy a new ticket at full price. So I waited in the line at the airport to check in, and the line was an hour long. I missed the flight. When I got to the front, I was really irritated because I had missed the flight. And I'm going to tell you that entrepreneurs do, I learned this later. There's three things that entrepreneurs do that everybody else doesn't. I want to take the time to explain this because I think it's important. Every day in your life, you encounter problems. You go out to run an errand at lunch, and it takes 3 hours. And you come back, and someone says, "How was your day?" And you say, "Horrible. Those idiots made me stand in line for 3 hours." But here's what the rest of the world does: they complain and go back to their life. Here's what entrepreneurs do that everyone else doesn't. Entrepreneurs do three things. They stop. I want you guys to do this. The next time you're frustrated in your life because there's a problem, stop. Don't go home and complain. Stop for a minute. Do this. The first thing entrepreneurs do is they say, "Does this problem bother anybody but me?" You know, in the books they call that market sizing. Is this a big problem? If the answer to that question is yes, then entrepreneurs do a second thing that no one else does. They do the research. Is there a way to solve this problem? Is there a solution that already exists that I don't know about? If the answer to that is no, there is not already a solution, entrepreneurs do a third thing that no one else does. They say, "Hey guys, you go home without me. I'm not leaving here until this is fixed." So now I want to tell you about my first startup. I'm in that airport line. It takes an hour to get a boarding pass. I turn to I say to the woman, I said, "How can this take an hour? All you did was hit print." She says, "Sir, you need a boarding pass to get on an airplane." I said, "I know, but it took you an hour and all you did was hit the print button. It's just a printer." And she said, "Sir, you need a boarding pass to go through security." And I said, "I get that, but it's just a printer. Can you not just put the printer over there and I'll print my own?" And she said, "Sir, only an airline can print a boarding pass." Mark, you can still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear.
Okay. And so here's the entrepreneurial thing that I did. I turned to all the people in line and I said, "Does this bother anybody but me that it takes an hour to get a boarding pass?" Everybody groaned. So then I did a second thing. I said, would anybody in this line give me $5 if I could give you a boarding pass right now and you could skip the line? What is that, guys? It's value equation. A business is defined by a service that people will pay you more than it costs you to deliver it. People in the line, when I said, "Who would give me $5?" people in the back of the line were yelling, $15, $20. I was like, holy crap, I'm on to something. So then I did that third thing. I said, figuratively, "You guys stay here, I'll be back." On that Friday, I started my first company. We designed, patented, invented, and started selling in airports all over the world those kiosks that you guys now check yourself in. When you go to an airport, check in, get your own boarding pass, we invented them. So my first company was launched because I was standing in the middle of the problem and said, "This is insane. There's got to be a better way." I'm telling you that because to be a successful entrepreneur, next time you see a big problem, don't walk away and complain with everybody else. Stop and say, "Hey, wait, I want to see if I can fix this."
So after that company, what was the next company that you started? Was it Priceline or a different one?
Hang on. Um, I'm trying not to die. Um, Priceline was the fifth company. Um, the second company actually failed later and then succeeded in its second life. Um, because I had this crazy idea that you didn't actually need to go to the mall to buy stuff if you had a computer in your house. There was this cool new thing called the internet. So we launched a company. We even called it virtual shopping to get people to buy stuff using their computer. The day we went live, it was just crickets chirping silence because nobody wanted to buy anything on their computer. The business failed, but we found a way to rebirth something from the ashes. We had built all the technology to enable retailers to connect to the internet, which was new. Even though retailers did not want to sell sweaters on the internet, we read a story that all the kids in the world wanted to get on the internet. So we converted our software, 80% of which was reusable, into some of the first internet banking technology in the world. And then the company was extremely successful.
So now you're 2 or 3 companies in. What are the biggest lessons that you learned from that?
There's a few things. That was one. Don't Skype me. I'll add that one. Don't bump the phone when you're Skyping. Um, Here's one of the first ones: is that you are never as smart as you think you are, and you cannot do this alone. When you do a startup, by definition, it's only you, so you're doing all the jobs. You're doing sales, you're paying the bills, you're doing marketing, you're designing the product. You should be planning to get rid of every one of those jobs except one as soon as you possibly can. The key to success is to surround yourself with people smarter than you in every other area. It's when I'll tell you a quick story. I didn't know, I'm an engineer. I didn't know anything about accounting or finance. So somebody said, "Jeff, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you got to learn that." So I went to the bookstore and I bought a book, a black and yellow book called Accounting for Dummies. And I was proud of myself, and I went home and I opened the first page. And I thought, "Oh my God, this is the stupidest idea ever." This is like asking my engineer to write our marketing campaign and ask our marketing person to do our taxes. You are not going to learn accounting on the side and be as good as someone who got an accounting degree and is a finance major. So I realized the goal is to go find people smarter than you in all the areas that you're not the best at, and just stick to the one thing you're good at.
So what is the key to hiring good people then?
If you keep asking short questions, it's really hard to eat. I was going in for a bite right there, and then your question was short. The key, there's two keys Two keys to hiring good people. The first one is culture. Do not hire people by resumes and skill sets. Hire people by values, by interest, by character, by integrity, by resourcefulness, energy level, passion. So what I'm saying is, you want to hire somebody that regardless of what the resume says, you would say, hey man, that girl Mary, she's one of us. Or you would say, that guy Paul, he's really talented, but he's just not one of us. So the question is, what does one of us mean? And that's your task, is to define your culture and your values and the kind of people you want to build a company around. And then make people aware of that culture. This is what we value at this company. If you don't believe in that, no matter how talented you are, you shouldn't work there. And by the way, you shouldn't hire them. And if you find somebody you hired and they really don't represent your culture, you need to be brave enough to get rid of them, no matter how talented they are. If you think about great companies, like let's take my friend Tony Hsieh's company, which is called Zappos. Tony has this whole happiness thing with smiley faces and a whole culture of good attitude. And if you don't believe in that and you think it's marketing crap, they fire you. So cultural fit is the first important lesson on hiring good people. The second one is to align goals and make the team's interests your interest. When you launch a company and you're going to hire, and you go say, here is my PowerPoint, my business plan, my goals, my dreams. Basically, you're telling somebody, I want you to come here and work really, really hard so that someday I can buy a boat. Not motivating. What you need to do is ask people, what could a career at this company do for you in your life? I'm going to tell you, Charity Mark, something that I do with all my employees. I ask them to name one thing they have to do in their life before they die so that they will look back and be happy with their life. And then I make them print a picture of it. I'll give you an example. The first time I asked somebody that was a guy named Chris, and he said, I grew up in a mobile home. My mom still lives there. And before I die, I swear I will buy her a house in Florida to spend the rest of her life in. So we printed a picture of a house in Florida, put it on the wall where Chris works. And people said, what is that? And I said, it's the reason Chris comes to work every day. What's yours? So if you walk around my office, you'll see all these seemingly odd pictures. They are the reason that everyone that works for me comes to work every day. And it is my job to make sure that through their career, I help everybody buy their mom a house or whatever their goal is. So those, I think, are two of the keys. And now this commercial break from our sponsor. Our sponsor is a piece of chicken, by the way.
So going back to what you're talking about, let's talk a little bit about culture. As let's say there's some first-time entrepreneurs in the room starting to build a company. What is the key to building a great culture?
By the way, the people in the car next to me were like, honey, that man is talking to his steering wheel and eating. Because they can't see the phone, which is propped on the steering wheel. So they're just eyeing me like, what is that guy doing? I love my car, lady. I'm sorry, say that again. What was the question?
I said, what is for first-time entrepreneurs building a company and starting to hire people, what is the key to building a great culture?
I think the most important thing is sharing and discussing the values. You don't fire somebody later when they did something that really upset you and they didn't even know that was important. So I think the key is having those meetings as a team. What do you guys care about? Why do you come to work here? What are your plans for your life? When I ask people, my first interview question is not their resume or the job. My first interview question is what I told you guys. Tell me one thing you need to do with your life. I learn a lot about them when they answer that question. Somebody that says to me, "I'm just trying to be a millionaire," I'm not. That's not the person I want to build a company around. Somebody that actually says, "If I become successful, here's how I'm going to impact the world with my success." That's the person I want to build a company around. So my answer to your question is, you got to discuss a culture and engage people and find out what people care about. But once you decide what your culture is, you got to live it and you can't let anybody violate it. People that roll their eyes and say, "That's stupid, but that's what Jeff likes," they can't work for you. If you really don't believe it, go work somewhere else, because I want to surround myself by people that have shared beliefs.
So now let's kind of turn it over and talk a little bit about building a company. Let's say that some people in this room have an idea to start a company. What is the first thing that they should do?
So I'm going to answer that. I was on this TV show with all these founders and CEOs, and the woman said just that. She said, "When you have a good idea, what's the first thing you do?" All the other CEOs said, "I gather my team and I go to the conference room." Or if they don't have a team, it's just them, they said, "I go to the whiteboard." I said, "I get my car keys and I go in the parking lot." And everybody's like, "What?" And I'm going to tell you why I said that. Um, the most people design their product, their business from their company out. Where do you work? You work at your desk, at your office. You design ideas, you push them, you create ideas, push them out in the world and hope somebody likes them. Um, what I have learned, or people say, excuse me, create an MVP, this minimally viable product, and push that out and see if people like it. The first thing you do, and now there's a word for it, I think they call them customer inquiry or customer discovery or whatever it's called. The first thing you do is get in your car, get out of your office, go right to the people that you think are you're going to sell this to, and ask them starting on day one, is this even a good idea? If you have a product that's for pregnant moms and you are a 30-year-old male, who cares what you think of the product? No matter how brilliant you think your idea is, you need to get in your car and go to a baby store or somewhere that pregnant moms are hanging out and say, "I was just thinking of this. Does this idea make any sense?" So the first thing you do with an idea is go straight to the buyer, straight to the market, and see if they think it's a good idea. And it doesn't matter what you think, it only matters what they think.
So let's say they find something that's a good idea. People seem to want to do it. What should the next step be? Build the software? Is it what do you think the next step should be?
It's any version of a prototype. What can you show people and say, "Okay, I know you like the idea, but here's what the solution looks like." So a prototype is the next thing. If it's a web product, you do a little, you do wireframes and you do a little prototype. If it's a physical product, if you invented a new toaster, you got to prototype one and build a sample. So the next step is a prototype, whatever your product or service is going to look like, so you can say to people, "This is what I meant when I told you." Because then people say, "Oh, I didn't know you meant that. I thought you meant this." You have to get a prototype. There are many, many books written and tools called rapid prototyping. You should read one, because rapid prototyping is a really important skill.
So a lot of people that I talk to focus a lot about raising money. They think it's an easy task, and they said, "Well, I'm going to build a prototype, and I'm going to go raise money to fund this company." Do you think that's the right approach, or what is the right approach they really should take?
All right, so this is an editorial opinion. Um, these views, what's the disclaimer? These views may not reflect the views of management. Um, that's how you do a disclaimer, right? New,
Right.
New Jersey residents add sales tax. I think that's a disclaimer too. Um, the uh, Silicon Valley has way overhyped the importance of funding now. It's actually misleading, and it messes up a lot of companies because they go get funding too early when they don't really even know what they need it for. Then they have new owners of the company, which are called investors. And then the investors are on their case every day. And if they don't produce fast enough, these companies wind up getting shut down before they ever had a chance. Um, Funding. So Silicon Valley, again, you know why? Because they make all their money by investing in companies. So of course they want you to take their money. It's like a bank. If a bank doesn't do any loans, they go out of business. They have to do loans to get interest. So my advice is delay taking anybody else's money as long as you possibly can. Bootstrap as far as you can. Get as much as you can done, and that has two benefits. One benefit is the cost of the funding is way less there. If you have done nothing and you ask someone to give you money, they're going to take a huge chunk of your company. If you've already built a prototype and gotten a lot of work done, you've eliminated a lot of risk, you've made a lot of progress, and they take less of your company. Um, so that's one big reason. And the second reason to bootstrap as long as you can is that investors are far more likely to fund a startup that says, look at all this work I've already done. Guys, I literally had two people come into my office on the same day. The first guy showed me his PowerPoint. I said, it sounds cool. Let me see it. And he said, well, I haven't written anything yet. And I said, well, you got a prototype? He said, no. I said, do you even have a mock-up? Is it hand-drawn? He said, no. And I said, well, go and do that. And he said, well, I'll do that as soon as you give me money. I said, so let me understand this. You're just going to sit there and do nothing till I give you money? And he said, yeah, give me money and then I'll do something. He left. The next guy came into my office. The guy comes into my office, and this is a true story, guys. He is in wrinkled clothes and his hair's all over the place. And everybody talks to you about how important your appearance is. So I said, whoa, time out. I said, I need to ask you something. And his name's Michael. I said, Michael, you came to an investor meeting looking like you slept in those clothes and never showered? He said, Mr. Hoffman, I did sleep in those clothes and I never showered. I said, why would you come to an investor meeting like that? He said, that wasn't my plan. And he said, but I am so determined to make this thing work that I stayed up all night working on an idea that I had, and I looked up and it was 8:30 and I had to be at your office at 9. I said, so you look like that because you worked the whole night trying to fix a problem. And he said, yes, sir, I did. Who do you think I want to fund? Right? So that kid said, I am doing everything I can possibly do with no money, but I'm hitting the point where I can't find anything else to do without a little funding. I'll tell you a funny story on the way out. I said, thank you, I'll get back to you. He turns around and goes, Mr. Hoffman? I said, yeah. He said, can I borrow $40? I said, $40? I said, do you not have gas? He said, no, sir, I have gas in my car. And I said, what do you need $40 for? And he said, I've been working so hard lately that while I was driving over here, my girlfriend called and said, dude, you got till Friday to take me to dinner or I'm done with you. So he said, if you could give me $40, he said, I love this girl and I don't want to lose her. I got to get dinner by tomorrow and I'm broke. He said, if you could give me $40, I'll take her to dinner. So I looked in my wallet to give him two 20s. This is funny. What I had happened to go to the bank. I had 200. So I gave him 200. And he put one back and he said, I only asked for $40. That's pretty impressive right there. I gave him 200 and he put one back. A broke kid who can't even feed himself. And he said, I only asked you for $40. And I said, well, take both hundreds. And he said, 100's fine. And he said, you want to know something? And I said, what? And he said, I don't even know a restaurant where I can spend $100. He said, what, do I order 5 pizzas? And I said, take the 200, buy some flowers and a gift, and maybe get your clothes ironed on the way home. So my point is, investors want to see that you are putting in the maximum level of effort, that you really have done everything you can before you ask for money. So those are the two reasons you should not follow all this conventional wisdom of start looking for funding immediately. You should not look for funding until you've done everything you can without it.
So entrepreneurship is it's a sexy thing right now. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. So what do you think the overall state of entrepreneurship is today?
Well, I think it's a great question because I think that it got totally mismarketed, and I talk about this all the time. Um, when I ask people, do you want to be an entrepreneur? I just gave speeches at Notre Dame, University of Iowa, Case Western. I was a lot of schools. Mark, I think I told you I'm headed tomorrow. Like I might have already mentioned this, but tomorrow I'm going to talk to entrepreneurs in Serbia, Croatia, Macedonia, Albania, all these countries. As I go around and talk to people and say, do you want to be an entrepreneur? A lot of people say no because they think to themselves, no, I don't want to go start an internet company. And the idea, think about the media message. There's only been one movie about entrepreneurs ever, and it was the Facebook movie, Social Network. And it focused on that song, I Want to Be a Billionaire. So people think being an entrepreneur means I need to be focused on making money, selling my company, getting rich, starting a tech company. Um, it's none of those things. So people self-identify. They say, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. And here, I'm going to tell you what entrepreneurship really is. Entrepreneurship is the skill set of self-determination. Entrepreneurs are people that design their own future. It's a skill set of saying, this is how I want to live, so I'm going to design that life. I'm going to give you guys a quick example. My childhood dream, my whole life, my fascination is travel. All I ever wanted to do was see the world. And I worked in engineering cubicle, right, where I was saying before that I never went anywhere. So I was sitting in the cubicle one day saying, I'm never going to see the world. I never even leave my cubicle. So now you should be less surprised that Priceline is a travel company. I said, I want to design a future. I want a future where I fly all over the world. So I created a startup, starting with my first startup with the ticket printers, where my job literally was to fly around the world. I'm going to tell you another thing. I always had the dream of being involved in the music biz because I love it. And I started saying, how do I design? I'm an engineer, a tech guy, but I want to be in music. So how do I do that? Well, guess what? I started thinking, what if I applied my entrepreneurial skills? Remember, I told you the key is to be able to solve a problem. What if I go figure out some problems that the music business has, and then I use my entrepreneurship skills of hiring and building great teams and solving problems, and I go solve some problem in the music business, then someday I could live my dream. My dream, by the way, was to produce a concert and to go on a tour once in my life. So because I applied my entrepreneurial skills and solve problems, by the way, pick an industry, pick a dream you have. My dream is do a concert. My dream is do a tour. Whatever yours is, go analyze it and say, in that business, or to make that dream come true, what has to happen? So I wrote it down. What does a concert consist of, or a tour? It consists of a singer, a guitar player, a dancer, lighting, choreography. I wrote all those down and I put a line through them because I can't do any of those. But guess what else my dream of the music business consists of? Somebody has to finance the concert, put up the money. Somebody on the back end, check this out. Somebody has to market the concert, promote the concert, advertise the concert, get tickets sold. I know how to do marketing and promotion. So because my dream was to create a life where I got to do stuff with music biz, I started a company that solved those problems. And I'll just sort of tell you guys the punchline. One day my concert production worked. One day I was literally going out on stage in front of 30,000 screaming people, introducing Elton John because he and I were putting on a show together that night. And my friends were like, "Dude, that's so cool. How did you ever get there?" And the way I got there was by using the skills of self-determination and designing your future, which is mislabeled as entrepreneurship. I'll tell you the second one, just for fun. I wanted to do a tour company and be in the music business and go on tour. And one day, uh, I was on tour, and at this time, I was on tour with NSYNC. We did tours with NSYNC and Britney Spears and Backstreet. And I'm on tour with NSYNC, and at this time, they're the biggest band in the world, and they're performing at Heinz Stadium where the Pittsburgh Steelers play. 70,000 screaming people. All right, 69,000 screaming girls to be precise, including possibly someone in that room might have gone to that tour. And here's what happened. It's just amazing. And the guys wanted to go to the tunnel where the Steelers come out. So we're standing in the tunnel, and we're looking at the stadium. And I'm standing there with Justin Timberlake and NSYNC. And I said to Justin, I said, "Did you ever in your wildest dreams imagine that you'd be standing right here, right now?" And he said something really interesting. He said, "Hey, Jeff." I said, "What?" And he said, "Did you ever in your wildest dreams imagine that you would be the guy standing here with us?" And the answer is, yeah, kind of. Because entrepreneurs engineer their future. They design companies and they create jobs. I created that opportunity because I wanted it. And I'll just tell you the craziest moment of all happened last year in our music company. Last year we won a Grammy for an album we produced ourselves. So I was standing on the Grammy red carpet winning a Grammy for an album we produced. And I remember somebody saying to me, "Did you ever," all the paparazzi people out there, they were yelling to me, "Hey, did you ever think this moment could ever happen?" Actually, I'll tell you what he actually said. He said, "How do you feel right now?" And I said, on the Grammy red carpet, I said, "This is the dream of software engineers everywhere." And it was just like crickets chirping silence on the red carpet. They're like, "What the hell is wrong with that guy?" Um, but the truth is, entrepreneurship is the skill set, I'm going to say it again, of self-determination. So we need to rebrand it. What you should think of is entrepreneurship does not mean you have to go start your own company necessarily. Or it doesn't mean you need to do an internet company, or it doesn't mean you need to care about money. All it means is that you need to be the person who designs the perfect job and the perfect life for yourself.
Before we move on to the Q&A part of it, when I was doing some research on you and listening to some talks, there's two powerful stories that I really want you to share with the audience. And that was, let's start off first with the jam story. Can you talk a little bit about that? I think you were in Cairo, correct? And a little bit about that jam story.
I think that really defines entrepreneurship. And it's the reason that I go to all these countries now, because I believe if we teach the skills of entrepreneurship, i.e. the skills of self-determination, do something where you live, to a lot of people, we can fix a lot of problems. My fundamental belief in life is that if you want to make the world a better place, unleash an army of entrepreneurs. So that being said, I advise the White House and the State Department and the United Nations, organizations like that on entrepreneurship. So they sent me to Egypt to teach entrepreneurship to post-revolutionary Egyptians. and it was a bunch of women. And this one woman, I said, "Why did you come to the entrepreneurship class?" And she said, "In my neighborhood in Egypt, there are 20 houses. One is empty, 19 have families. None of those 19 families have a job. They struggle every day to keep the lights on and feed their children." She said, "My goal in life is to somehow help all those 19 families." And she said, "But I have no idea how, and I don't know what an entrepreneur is, so I came to find out." So at lunch break, all these women had brought their own sandwiches. But I noticed that all the sandwiches looked alike. So I didn't say anything the first day, but the second day, when they were eating sandwiches, I said, "Why do you all have the exact same sandwich?" And they said, they pointed at the one, and they said, "Well, because she makes jam at home. And the jam she makes is like the best jam you will ever have in your life." So that'll stop in a sec. Someone's calling me. It's probably the police because I'm sitting in a dark car in a parking lot talking to my steering wheel. Um, the, all of them said to me, they said, "We stop by her house every day before we come to your class because this jam is so good." So I said to her, "Everybody loves your jam." And she said, "Yeah, I get up early and make everybody sandwiches before class." So now I'm going to skip to the punchline. We helped her launch a company. We got her a micro loan. She bought the empty house. She turned it into a jam factory. Today, all 19 of those other women work in the factory. They can and bottle and package and deliver jam. We got 2 local college kids to build her a website so people could order it, and they ship it all over Egypt now. So entrepreneurship is simply figuring out what useful thing you can do where you live to achieve your goal. Her goal is to employ everybody, and everybody works for her now.
So the last story is going to be about when you're at Evander Holyfield's house. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I'll end with that one. So I only have about 15, 20 minutes left, and I want to make sure we have some Q&A time. Um, and this is about work ethic, and it's not a story of sports, guys. It's a story about life. But I want to tell you something that Mark's referring to that was a huge epiphany moment in my life. As to some people wonder why they say things like, I'm reading all the right books. Why am I not successful? Because it takes a little bit more than just desire. And here's where I learned that. Um, if you don't know who Evander Holyfield is, he was the heavyweight champion of the world that knocked out Mike Tyson. And for people that are not boxing fans, you probably know this. In the rematch fight, Mike Tyson bit my friend's ear off. As a matter of fact, I just lost my appetite for my chicken. Um, um, it's oddly ear shaped. So Evander and I became friends. Evander was training for a fight. Uh, Evander came out of the hood in a house where he never even slept on a bed. He laid on a dirty floor his entire childhood. And became the champ, and very successful, including $300 million in his career. Whatever. So anyway, where Evander's getting ready to fight the heavyweight title fight. I'm in his house at the gym, just spotting him. He's doing an exercise. He's doing an exercise that he does 300 times a day. It's insane, guys. It's an exercise that no other human being can do twice, and he does it 300 times a day. I was counting, and I said 299, 300. And Evander said, "Jeff, was that 299 or 300?" And I said it was 300. And he said, "Are you sure? Was it 299 or 300?" And I'm thinking, oh my God, this exercise, you do it 300 times a day, it's ridiculous, whatever. And I said, it was 300. And Evander went all the way back down to the ground and did one more repetition of this exercise. And he said to me, I think it was only $2.99. And there's where I made the mistake. I rolled my eyes like, come on, man. And what Evander said next that Mark's referring to is something that literally changed my life. Epiphany moment. He said, Jeff, look at me. And I looked at him. And as he got up, he said, the difference between $2.99 and $300 is the difference between being heavyweight champion of the world and every other boxer. And I had goosebumps. He got up and he quietly walked away. And I stood there for 10 minutes with my eyes closed to make sure this lesson soaked into my soul. And here's why. Today, if $2.99 is good enough for you today, guess what's good enough tomorrow? $2.98, because that's almost $2.99. And guess what's good enough the next day? $2.97, because that's what's almost $2.98. And guess what's happening down the street in any industry you're in? Somebody's doing $300 and they're about to kick your butt. So I went home and I wrote on my wall, the number $2.99 with a red circle and a slash through it. No $2.99. Today, what I love is when people hear this story and they go home and they write a no $2.99s here sign and they send me a picture of it. I got one from Bulgaria recently. It was so cool. And here's what happened. I'm in my office. What I'm telling you is this isn't a sports story. It's the attitude that winners have that everybody else doesn't. If you want to be a champion in anything, you need to have this attitude. So I go back to work. I read a proposal. I finished the proposal. It's midnight. I look at it and say, this is a good proposal. This will win the business. So I'm walking out of my office. However, I pass my own sign that says no $2.99. I look at this proposal and I say, this is good enough. This will win the business. But then I think to myself, but is it 300? Did I do good enough or not the best I can give? Every company I launch, every idea I have, everything I do. Am I doing $2.99 or $300? I'll tell you what happened. I went back in my office, rolled my sleeves up, kicked off my shoes, stayed till 4:30 a.m. and rewrote the proposal. When I was done, I looked at it and said, this is the best work I can do. This is $300. I sent the proposal to the customer. 2 weeks later, a really cool thing happened. Not only did we win the business, but she called me and said, Jeff, I need to tell you something. I did something we've never done in this company before. She said, I was at a conference with all my competitors. And she said, your proposal was so amazingly good that I told everybody at the table, don't even waste your time with the other companies, just buy Jeff's products. A $2.99 proposal, I would have won her business anyway. A $300 proposal, I won 5 contracts off that one proposal. So I'm going to close by telling you guys, there is no secret to success and no easy path. The winners, the champions in life, are the ones that said, I'm going to do 300 and finished all 300. Look, I really thank you guys for putting up with this. You guys calling a car tonight. Thank you for having me, and we got time for questions.
Thanks, Jeff. Open up the questions.
Can you
So
turn
anybody
that
have a
camera?
question?
so that I can see everybody? Is that
Yeah,
possible?
I'm kind of jammed in here with
If you
the.
can't, it's fine. It just would have been nice.
But we'll make them all come. We'll make them all come in the back to say hello.
Actually, you know what'd be nice, guys? After we're done, just take a group photo and send it to me
Okay, that'll work.
with half the
Okay,
people
got a
naked.
question right here.
I was kidding. You decide which half.
So the question was, how do you handle competition within a business?
Really good question. And I'm going to tell you something I did not know that I learned the hard way. Track your competition, but respond to your customer. So many times I see companies that put out some feature because their competitors just announced it. And it turns out the customer never gave a crap about that anyway. Do not follow competitors, follow customers. If every competitor turns left, but you go, and I said at the beginning, get out of your office and go talk to the customers. And every customer says, I really wish someone would go right. Then who the hell cares what your competitors did? So that's my answer. Track your competitors, but respond to your customers.
Next question.
So he talked about fundraising, how not to say yes on the first time. What is the best advice for him on that side? Like, what is the best thing that he did when raising money?
What is the best thing that you did when raising money?
All right. The answer to that is to treat investors like customers. If I say to you, who will use your product? All human beings from age 2 to 100? You would say, no, 2-year-olds can't use this. It's not for middle school kids. It's really designed for 32-year-old housewives. Somehow you know that you have to segment customers. But when I ask people, what's an investor? They say, well, anybody that has money. Really bad answer. I see all these entrepreneurs don't talk to anybody with money, anybody that calls themselves an investor, and get rejected 10 times a row. And it turns out you ask 10 people, hate the travel industry anyway, and we're never going to invest in a travel startup. So what I'm telling you is research, analyze, and segment investors the same way you segment customers. Find an investor that probably is really going to like your startup and figure out why. Somebody that loves the travel industry and invests in it all the time. Not somebody whose sign says we're an investment firm and that's the only reason you went there. Thanks, that was a good question.
Anybody else?
Yeah, so you talk about like doing what you're good at. What does he think that like has worked for him throughout his career? What is that one thing that he's really good at?
So the question is, you talk about like one thing that you're really good at. So in your case, what is the one thing that you're really good at?
Well, by the way, the only way to know that is to try stuff and fail, so don't fear that. People go out and get a job somewhere, try it. If it doesn't work and you're not good at it, move on. So I got an engineering degree, and it turns out I was really not a very good engineer. But I wound up being pretty good at marketing, so I just shifted gears. For me, I would say my one thing is prioritizing the plan. There's never enough time or hours in a day to do all the stuff that needs to get done. But I always seem to have a knack for saying there's 12 things we want to do, but if we do these 2 things because we can't do 12 anyway, those are the things that are going to make a difference in our lives and in our business. So let's just focus on those. So whenever things are noisy and chaotic, My one skill is I can trim away all the crap and figure out what's really important and just focus on that. But you won't know what your best skill is until you try, fail, try, fail.
Okay. One more question.
Just
Anybody?
one more.
Let's do one more. Anybody?
They say do not talk to people about your idea, but the second step that you mentioned is ask customers what they want or if they like it. Most of the entrepreneurs say that if you tell somebody, they'll turn you down, but don't listen to them. Should we listen to them or should we follow
Okay.
our own idea?
I'm going to give you some advice on that. That's a really good question. When I hear people tell entrepreneurs don't tell people your idea, I think that's really bad advice. And here is why. If your idea is so simple that if you told it to the store clerk and she could just do it, go get another idea. Here's what you're looking for in the innovation and idea game. You are looking for something that you have an unfair advantage in. Okay? Remember those words, unfair advantage. So let me give you an example. I told a lot of people when we were starting Priceline what we were building. And somebody said to me, well, they'll just steal it. And I said, you know what? Good luck with that. Go for it. You want to know why? Because we had an idea that we had an unfair advantage in. We had two. Here's what they were. One, the airline industry, the back end of it, is written in a proprietary programming language that takes like 1 to 2 years to learn, and almost no one knows it. We already knew that language. We already taught ourselves. If you want to compete with me and start my idea, you got to spend about a year getting ready. Here's the second reason. If you're going to sell a product to airlines, you're going to have to get meetings with airlines. I already knew CEOs of every airline in the country. Every one of them will take my call because I built those ticket printers before. So you want to try to steal my idea and build it? Good luck with that. You'll never be able to beat me. What I'm telling you is find an idea where you have some unfair advantage. You know the industry better than other people. You have really good relationships. You have experience. There is some reason that anybody hearing your idea could not just steal it. And I'm going to tell you one more reason why it's okay to tell people your ideas. Everybody talks and nobody executes. On my office, there's a sign. It says, ideas are welcome here, and execution is worshipped. Most of the people you will meet in your life will sit on the couch and talk about their amazing idea and never do anything. When people say, Jeff, why have you been successful in multiple companies? I said, because I tried. You'll be amazed at how important that first step is. So don't fear somebody stealing your idea because they're probably not as good at you as doing it, and they really don't feel like doing 300 anyway. Thanks, you guys, for the really good questions.
Jeff, I want to thank you again so much. Have a safe trip overseas, and we'll take a picture and I'll text it to you soon.
Thank you so much, and feel free. You can share with everybody my Twitter handle or my email with the group.
Will do. All right, thanks, Jeff.
Guys.
Appreciate it. All right, talk to you soon.
Hey, one more thing. How is everything there in the city?
Everything's going good. Actually, it's growing, and there's a lot of people coming in. There's a lot of companies that are, really starting to raise a good amount of money and getting good traction. So
Awesome to hear.
the triangle is growing rapidly.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
All right, Jeff. Talk to you soon. Thanks.
Bye.
Appreciate it.